Hello everyone, welcome back. Maybe this microphone. Okay, I seem to have set something up incorrectly there. Um, so why was there echo just now? Let me see the properties of that. I mean the volume also seemed quite high. Well, it also seems a bit high on this mic too. Let me see. Can I do anything about that? Okay, so there was monitor and output on the other mic. So let's try this again now. How are we now? Okay, this seems a bit better, and the volume doesn't seem to be hitting quite as high, maybe still a little bit. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to take more of a look into that at some point. Maybe I will go back to the other profile and I'll investigate a little bit more between streams. So with that all said, welcome everyone. Welcome back to the usual stream for writing a programming language in Rust. Today I'm intending to be working on error handling. I won't go into the usual prelude of the environment tools and other bits and pieces that I use to run the project. So I've set up some commands on stream elements that will hopefully make those kind of bits easier to interact with. And when I'll be uploading these onto the different video platforms, there should hopefully be enough of a description that the prelude won't be necessary. So I'm just going to dive right in. So today I'm intending to be working on the error handling that I had intended to do yet last stream and ended up being diverted from because the not operator wasn't implemented. So I decided to implement that then instead. What I'm going to do now though is I have a scratch file from the last instance of this project, which I am going to copy over. So that I can keep track of the bits and pieces that I want to do. So yes, so immutable declaration was one of the pieces that I wanted to make sure I get to at some point as well. But I think first case of business is error handling, and I have two operators that I want to implement. One is catch as bool and the other is catch as error. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we have this, I guess, AST variant for handling the not expression and unary expressions in general. But the way I'm going to implement this is actually going to be a separate AST variant. And with that, it's just going to separate out the logic, I would say, kind of nicely. And because I know that I'm going to be adding catch as error as a separate variant later, I'm actually going to name this catch as bool. In general, I would be opposed to preemptively naming things. I mean, at this point in time of the project, this is going to be the only catch expression. But because I know basically the next commit, I'm going to be implementing catch as error, so it's not as necessary, I would say. To distinguish between, or to name things just catch and then refactor them in the very next commit when I know what's coming. So we'll just do it like this. So we'll need to add some symbols for all of these. So question is already there. Yeah, I think I had added that already, and it was just the way that so I don't need that either, because at least I don't think I do. Realistically, I probably don't need it in this one either, because the operator location should be coming from elsewhere, but then I think the reason I kept it was to just have a little bit of crossover between the binary operators and the unary operators and how they're handled, and just minimizing the differences, which isn't essential, but it can be useful. So let's go ahead and implement our catch expression. Where are we going to put that now? I suppose it'll be going down at the bottom as a very new type of variant. So there's going to be catch as bool, and it's just going to take an expression like so. And now we're going to have to implement the functionality in a bunch of places. Well, most of the handlers are just going to be kind of error handling. So for example, in, let's see, 479, that's probably going to be the actual implementation. Oops, where was that? 331, I think. So invalidate args. Yeah, you can't have a catch expression in an argument. Yeah, you can only have it as a, well, you can have it as an argument, not a formal parameter. So let's go. So I will make the description just catch, or yeah, so this is going to be interesting. I'll probably in the documentation call it a Boolean catch and an error catch, but sometimes for grouping purposes it can be useful to give them the same prefix. So I'm going to call them in the code, so I'm going to call them catch as bool and catch as error. So let's see, that was 331. We also have it in bind, and that's going to be line 84, and similar, just error handling. So yeah, you can't bind to a catch. So I do need to have the, what's it called? The operator location. So ladder pop keeps changing to not be the, what have you? It keeps changing to not be Rust. My dialogue is a little stilted today. I'm not really sure. I guess I'm a little tired. That could be it. So let's go ahead and take a look at our nvim config. And this is a little messy at the moment, but I want to set it up so that I'm not constantly changing the name to Rust, or changing the type to Rust. So let's see. take a quick look at autumn cmd file name. Interesting. That is the first time I've heard the fans go on in this laptop. I guess it's because of OBS potentially. I don't really have that much going on. Let's take a quick look at, while we're really going down different rabbit holes today and doing different bits of yak shaving. Even took a while for, oh yeah, OBS is running at 400%. Now, why would that be? I think that is because I did change the settings of the output to so the software encoder is running at a different quality than the stream. Now, I'm not really sure why that is. It is saying that it's doing that, but I'm not really sure why the qualities are different. But again, that is something that I guess I'll have to dive into a bit later instead. Yeah, so that's running at 400%. Wow. Well, that is an issue for a slightly different time. So in this case, we want our buffer that if it says what's called parser.lalorpop, set local syntax is equal to Rust. Okay, we finally have that sorted again. Oops, I should have gone back there. I'm going to keep forgetting that. I would like to automate it, but basically I just added this auto group to my NeoVim initialization file, and that seems to have done the trick. So let's see, we have got, oh, the fan seems to have calmed down again, at least in the short term. But with that all said, let's hop back into the parser. And we have catches bool. Yeah, I guess each of those is set up like that. So we'll compile that, or save it rather, and then we'll save. Oh, did it save all the files that I was working on? Or did I save them myself already? I'm not sure. Or did it just not save them, which would be kind of worrying. No, I think it saved them. Oh, it didn't save them. Interesting. Oh, but I probably did a QA bang, like exit full terminal or exit full Vim session. And so I basically had this implemented in the project that I was calling Norpal. And I have the browser open next to me, so I'm actually going to just probably copy most of that over. So basically, if any error happens when evaluating the expression, well, if there was none, then we're going to return the value and the value true. Otherwise, we're going to say that we're going to return this value. Now, this is somewhat distinct to how Go does things, because Go does allow you to return actual values when an error occurred. In this case, we're kind of piggybacking off of the error implementation in Rust. So I guess this would preclude the possibility of doing things like the way Go does, for example, IO, where you can still return partial results. In this case, basically, if you want to return partial results, you'll have to return it in the error value, which is something that I think is kind of good anyway. I think it's maybe the right approach. So, I mean, there's for and against. It could be one of those things where it's enforcing a different, like some extra handling for maybe not a lot of benefits. So I'm not sure how pragmatic that is, but we'll go with that for now. And hey BM Carts, welcome back. So this is a scripting language and targeting basically the same space as bash scripts. Thanks for the question. And so let's see, we have that. If we're going to have an error, then we will return. So these are basically going to be put into or captured by OK variables. And so if an error occurs, then it's going to be not OK. And so regardless of what happened in there, we're never going to return an error at this point. Instead, we're always going to return a list containing the maybe value and maybe error that we created here. And that is basically it. Let's see if that compiles first. So I forgot to say what we're actually creating at these points. So they're going to be new bools. And so that's parse errors unexpected EOF. We just have to add the new token that we've added here. Oh, I'm in vi right now rather than neovim. At least the neovim is also picking up on the capture. So let's see, that was in tests, standard out. We have parse errors, and where does the question mark go? It goes after the open parentheses. Noticing a little bit of lag in the or maybe it's just me. So that should be all of those. Now, this could be a little more, well, actually no, this feature should be fairly straightforward because we don't really have to handle all the different kinds of errors that can occur. Oh, did I accidentally change the order there? Yeah, I did. So I want to order it by name, I think. Yeah. So the new file. So that's why there's a slight delay when creating a file name. It's because by default, O changes the ordering. It's a prefix for some of these commands. And so when I type O to, I also use O to just add a new file or directory. And because of that, because it's also a prefix, there's a little delay because it has to wait for more characters before it decides, okay, there maybe aren't more characters coming, so maybe he wants to just add a new item. So I should probably have there not be overlap there, maybe use like capital O or something. In fact, is capital O already used? Doesn't, oh yeah, add directory. But I can probably use, yeah, it adds it in the same place. I think, and in fact, okay, it always does directory. But if I create a regular file with a suffix of /, then it does the same thing. So maybe I'll use capital O for both. So back to where we were. We were going to add some tests for catch. We'll just call it catch tests for the moment. And most of these are just going to, well, some of these are going to be errors that in general you don't want to handle. So that's something that when I'm writing the there might need to be some, well, do I want to have situations where there's a distinction between some errors where it's like language errors and syntax errors versus actual logic errors? I guess there should be a class of errors where it's just like the program is structured wrong. You want to fix this. Versus basically every other type of runtime error. So I guess the typical one and the main use case for this type of construct is going to be looking up a value in an object. this is gonna be so let's try that. And we also have a linting issue to resolve. Okay, so I've done something wrong with the formatting here. This doesn't seem to be a file. Okay, I didn't actually open that file. This is just an empty buffer. How do I remove a buffer? We'll do that anyway. So let's try that. I also added a new file to the environment, so I need to restart my entr script. Dollar must be escaped. Okay, because we're interpolating. In fact, I don't need a string here at all. I can just do print v. So only lists can be structured into lists, got, and int. Oh, that's because I didn't actually use the new construct. And v is already defined. That makes sense. Oh, and yeah, the test is passed. So that's kind of the main use case for that one, really. Do I need many other tests to cover? We'll take a look. Already in scope, argnum mismatch, incorrect type, duplicate arg names. Like usually the language level stuff that we want to be able to handle is reflection and introspection. So in this case, we might not know, or sorry, in the case of the values over here, we might not know that the value A is defined here or not. And same down here, we might not know whether B is defined in X's or not. And so we want to be able to allow for that. Whereas in other cases, so sometimes that might make sense in the cases of, for example, different operations where we want to say, basically, I don't know what the type of this variable is going to be, so try to apply this operation, and if it fails, I'll just do something else. At the same time, the intention with this language in general is that because it's strongly typed, it's kind of designed to encourage, even if types are flexible, you still should be kind of diligent about them. Maybe on equality, like deep equality, that could be something. Or, yeah, equality on different types. Now, it could be a case of of this being configurable as well. So like I said a minute ago, the catch operator, or we could have this distinction between kind of language level, maybe syntax errors versus logic errors. But maybe that could be configurable to say, okay, I have a command line argument for the compiler that says treat syntax errors as runtime errors or as logic errors. But I think that idea of changing the properties of the language could be very problematic in their own ways, so I don't think that's worth it. So let's do that. A equals B if OK and is equal, then print equal and not equal. So we can have two else's here. So we can say if not OK. Well, we'll say if OK. Then we'll say not equal same type. And we'll have different types. Okay, what other bits can we do? So this is kind of similar. Out of string bounds. So it's basically the same as missing key. So prop not found, I'd be less inclined to allow for that, because if you're calling a property somewhat statically like that, it's kind of indicating that you're doing a property access, or rather kind of a, how to describe it, like the field of an object rather than a map lookup. Whereas this is more the syntax for map lookups. And so I would say it is more understandable to not know what the values of a map contain or what keys there are. Whereas when we're doing a property or field lookup on an object, for example, those should be well defined. Value range not indexable. How many lines do I have in this test file? 600. But I'd say most of the rest of these are probably more like, again, syntax errors. Yeah, and not necessarily, well, they're kind of syntax errors in that, in a way, the yeah, some of these should be caught by the language itself. I would nearly put them in the parser, but it's just easier to implement them at a different level. And so those kind of errors won't be, just won't be catchable because it's the same as, leaving out a, curly bracket on an if statement is kind of similar to trying to use the spread operator in an object destructuring. I mean, that's probably something that I would ideally reject at the lexing stage, but it's easier to implement by just handling it during the evaluation. So yeah, what I'll probably do is define a class of these where there's going to be distinct, they're going to be moved into, I guess, how to describe it. Yeah, there's going to be a special variant of error, I guess just called runtime error. And that is going to be distinct from the other language level errors. And so what I'm going to do down here is add in some tests for runtime errors. Where you can't catch them. So here we're going to have an error. Let's see. So unexpected comma. Okay, so that's in ignore type mismatch. Oh, here we are. No, wrong file. Oh yeah, I can't have it. I have to. I'm just used to writing Go. And it might be nice to be able to leave out the brackets. I think that could be difficult to implement, especially with general destructuring. I feel like there could be a grammar conflict if I were to try and implement that, but for the moment it's fine. Can't apply and to bool and null. Oh, interesting. So this is always going to be a boolean, and because is equals returns null, you can't match on it. So that is actually because and the other Boolean operators don't short circuit. Yeah, so we have false, so really by this stage and should stop evaluating. So let's go ahead and implement that. Now, this could be kind of complicated. I haven't really considered how to implement the Boolean operators using short circuiting. Yeah, so I guess we'll just implement it like this, something like if and actually I think I may have even implemented this somewhere before. No. Even in normal we were applying the binary operation fully. Yeah, so let's go back. Well, maybe what I'll do first is I will actually just disable that test. And I will save it for after. Oops. And yeah, the problem here is that we're expecting an error, but we are not getting one, so it's exiting successfully. So I guess what we want to do is implement our runtime error variant. In fact, I think we might have, I guess this will be basically the same as built-in function error. We'll probably use the same or have built-in function errors. Some built-in function errors are going to be runtime errors. So at the moment, an error will really just be an error string. But unlike when I was implementing this before and I just had error strings everywhere, we will be a bit more pragmatic about the implementation this time around. But for the moment, just to get this commit over the line, we're going to have just runtime error like this. And so a bunch of these are going to be repurposed as runtime errors. So let's see. Undefined, no. Invalid bind target, cannot bind to that, is bound multiple times, is already in scope, incorrect type. Incorrect type might be something we handle. Yeah, certainly in the case of equality. And what we can always do as well is be a little stringent with this up front and make more things errors than might be strictly necessary, like be overly strict, and then loosen those restrictions as different cases come up. And if people are using this language, they might be able to submit PRs and issues saying, you know, oh, there's this scenario that I think should be a runtime error instead. And we can look at those on a case-by-case basis and make the decision then. And it should be easy enough to swap each of those language errors into a runtime error. And then there are also potentially going to be situations where people say, oh, I think this should be an error, a runtime error. And maybe there'll be a decision to say, well, actually, that to be more idiomatic, that could be handled in this way. So let's go ahead, assuming that that'll be the case. So that's just, a language error. Arg num mismatch, too few args. So you're calling functions wrong so that the program shouldn't continue, really. If you're calling the function dynamically, no, we'll take a look at use cases as those come up. Invalid unary operator on type. Invalid binary operator type. So again, okay, so invalid equality operator types. These are going to be handled specially. Those are going to be a runtime error. And in fact, I think incorrect type can be left out. So we'll just put a comment here to say to come back to this one. Break outside of loop, return outside of functions. Those are basically just, same as syntax errors almost. For iterator must be an iterable. Value is not indexable. Yeah, I think all of those are fine. Trying to assign to a type property. Yeah, can't be done. Out of string bounds, out of list bounds, those are going to be runtime. Range is outside the string bounds. Yeah, that one too. That is going to be a more problematic error. Range end out of list bounds. Index can't be negative. No, I think that should crash. Outside these structures. Spread non-list in a list. Object destructure. Prop not found. Now that could be something that we handle or not based on what we were saying before about what syntax is used for looking up the property. Type function not found. Yeah, because the type functions are pretty... Actually, I hadn't thought of the idea of looking up type functions dynamically. I guess the fact that type functions, yeah, it's possible to assign them to values. So if you really need to do dynamic lookup on type functions, that is possible using workarounds, but for the moment, maybe not. Yeah, that's basically a null pointer exception. Properties can only be accessed on objects. Yeah, you're trying to do the wrong type of operation on a value. Interpolated values can only be strings. I think that even might... Oh yeah. Couldn't parse interpolation slot. Integer overflow. That's something that we should be able to handle. And yeah, I guess we'll add in error handlers for all of the cases. So that's equality. We've got kind of a separate... Actually, what I'll do is I'll keep the test, but I'll change how it's implemented, just so that we can commit it, and then we can simplify it later. So what we're going to do is if OK, if equal, and in a way this makes more sense anyway, but for the sake of actually, you know, implementing short circuiting, which is necessary, then we will refactor this. So yeah, there's a test for that. There's a test for out of bounds, out of string bounds, and we want out of list bounds. Prop not found. Now we want to say that when we do a prop not found, using this kind of an access, then that can't be caught. Though, could it be nice? Yeah, because you could be like, it would allow you to do just something simple like that instead of matching on each sub item as well. Yeah, maybe I will allow that, even though there's, I think, pros and cons. So let's do it like that. Object doesn't contain that property. Yeah, that's implemented. Overflow. Now, a lot of these operators as well can only return one type of error, and so being able to catch as a boolean to handle those kind of singleton errors is quite useful, I think. Even though in my head a language like this and the domain that it's intended to be used in should never really be dealing with overflows, but who knows. So we have equality type mismatch, and it's saying not equal different types. So what's the issue? Oh, because I have an underscore there for some reason. Then finally we have cannot catch runtime error, and that's going to be the one we change. Yeah. So let's see. We're basically going to change mod so that instead of catching every error, we're going to say it depends on the error. And so, yeah, we're basically going to say if let, what was it, error runtime is equal to that. And in fact, we don't really care about the contents. Then we return that, otherwise we're going to throw the error. And are we going to wrap the error as well for debugging purposes? I think so. So it's going to be return new location error, and it'll be catch as bool failed, and it's just going to wrap E. that should basically be it. I'll need to add in a new error handler, or basically variant handler here. It looks like there's some variants missing here. They're not showing up in tests though, I think, so I don't know. I'll focus on what I'm doing. I can always resolve those easily enough later anyway. Okay, so that error seems to be doing what we want, and those other tests are now failing as well because we haven't promoted the existing errors into runtime errors yet. So this one is cannot catch runtime error. What's the difference? Can't call string as a function. I don't really see if there's a typo or what's the situation here. Kind of lost with this one. So it's going to standard error. Oh, it's because there's an extra 1 there. Why is that? Because I'm calling new location error, I guess. Even though I thought that should be fine. Let's try doing just that. Yeah, that seems to have sorted it out. Cool, so time to... Yeah, so these are now being turned into, I guess, language level errors. So it's still saying, so even though we tried to catch it, we're saying this is still outside the string bounds, this object still doesn't contain that property, and so on. So we're going to convert a few of these. So let's see, where do we start? Maybe the property access ones. So this is going to be for an object lookup. Instead of prop not found, we're going to have runtime with a message. The nesting here is really ugly, but it's fine for the moment. And when's that? So that's for a direct property access. Okay, so even without looking, I'm guessing that this is an issue with essentially unwrapping the error, because it's wrapped in a bunch of failure variants. Now, what's the easiest way of getting through those? I'm not sure that there is one. Like, ideally, I would be able to say that, let's see. If error or any of its sources, basically, while error has a source, keep unwrapping. But oh, that's interesting. So when I am trying to swap screens, it shrinks the terminal in OBS. I mean, that makes sense, but it looks a little strange. But basically, what I want to do at this point, I think, is go over to Snafu and see if there's a nice way of kind of drilling into the source in a recursive way. I don't think there would be, but we'll give it a check. That's interesting. Kind of errors, basic strings as errors for just introducing error, like proper error handling into your project. It's been a while since I've actually looked at the details of this package. So let's see. Ensure maybe? No, that's basically assertions. I think it's going to be the chain. Iter chain. We basically want to take the last. So what's our best way of jumping through an iterator? Maybe there's just a last. Yeah. Returns the last element. So maybe we can try that. So we want, which, let's see. So can we do, so I think we are already importing the error compat. And that exposed, what was it, iter chain. Let's see if it's as simple as that. No, maybe we're not importing. We're importing results ext. What version of Snafu am I using? It's probably quite an old version. Yeah, so we're on 6.9. So maybe, I guess we have two options. We can actually upgrade to the latest and greatest, or we can just see what was available in 6.9 for the moment. So we still have error compat. And you can actually just construct a backtrace, which is kind of nice. So that just added backtrace. Do we have anything for the result? Oops. No. Maybe 6.10, just in case they keep things the same. I guess one potential issue is that if I upgrade, then it could break things. I guess let's give it a go. Version 0.8.5. Or maybe if version 7 also has what I want, we could do that. I mean, if we're going to try upgrading, we'll try upgrading to the latest first. But okay, so 7.5 has it as well. So we'll try upgrading to the latest. But if that fails, we can fall back to the 0.7 range. Yeah, that's not great. Now, it might not be too much work to update it, especially, well, it would probably be in the best interest for the project to do it as well. But let's just see if changing to 7.5 will, no. We've still got a lot of errors. Now, do they have release notes on the breaking changes? We take a look at crates.io. I guess it gives the same information. Huh, that's so interesting. Just all these dips in the downloads. Wonder what that's about. But maybe the repo has descriptions of, yeah, so here we have the change log. And can I view that in full screen? I guess it's basically full screen and I can just hide that. Ah, Snafu upgrade assistant. Where is that? Okay, we can cargo install it and then run it. So 1, install the assistant, 2, run it, then update. Okay, so that made no changes, then you upgrade and then you run it again and then it does make changes. And is the same available for 8.0? I think it had basically all the same stuff, like the same errors between the two. So let's go ahead and just try what it's describing. So I'm going to use doc to jump into the shell here and go cargo install snafu. In fact, I'll just copy the command line. And I should go back to, what was it? 6.9, I guess I had. In fact, before that, I'm going to do a cargo build with to revert the changes. So we have iter chain. So that wasn't working. So we'll just go back to error just to have the project compiling. That is done, and we'll upgrade the assistant. Or rather, just install the upgrade assistant. Cool, so let's see how easily this makes things. So how do I do cargo run? Cargo install. Let's go back to the browser. So I guess there's a bunch of places where it could go. Oh, cargo bin. May take a while. How long is a while? I guess we shall just see. Oh, that wasn't too long at least. So with that done, we were instructed to change this to version 7. We just change it in the cargo.toml and then we run the assistant again. Oh, that's not the initial check. That should be the repeat check. Okay, but oh, that's something problematic as well, is that yeah, I should really stash my changes. But I don't think the tool actually did anything. Now that could be because I'm running the project in a Docker container. Now what did that actually do? Can I make it verbose? Okay, there is no help. Okay, but there is some documentation on the GitHub. So dry run. So context selectors now have Snafu. So many breaking changes. Create prelude. New whatever type, stringly typed, error cases, formatting syntax, iter chain. Like, this is what we're really interested in. Okay, added, changed, and removed. So we have all these breaking changes. So context selectors now say suffix. With context. I don't think I use with context, I just use dot context. I'm not using generate backtrace. I think I'm using one of the latest Rust versions, so that should be fine. String attribute parsing is no longer supported, so am I using that? Let's take a look. Anyway, we'll go back, let's see, go back to just cargo build, and we will check error. See, are we using Snafu? We are using Snafu. Is that display? And I'm not using eager context, so that should be fine. So we've downgraded. We're doing cargo bin run. Well, we'll do dry run first. I'm not sure where it generates the files as well. I guess it'll go into a dot directory. No. Maybe I'll check the source code for it. So we have, yeah, I should probably get a deck or something for changing between these scenes. So Okay, maybe it doesn't actually do anything. Yeah, when you don't have errors, maybe it's just to demonstrate the behavior. So let's go ahead and do the upgrade again. And we'll just do 7.0. Maybe I'll try cargo build. Snafu. Yeah, that looks like something that would need to be fixed. But it's not getting caught. I guess I'll go back to the window again and just see what the examples say in terms of, for example, deriving Snafu. Yeah, so it does. Okay, so it comes from Snafu prelude now. So if I come back here and I go to, I think, error, although that's coming from Snafu itself, that's not coming from my code, it seems like. But maybe, not sure. Yeah, it seems to be coming from Snafu itself. Maybe it's to do with the Rust version after all. What version am I using? So I'm on 1.83, so that should be fine. Maybe I will bump Snafu to the latest. Was it 0.75? So the latest in the 7 range was, yeah, 7.5. Okay, so that seems more like what we were getting before. So maybe if we run that with a dry run. Yeah, that kind of looks like what we would want to happen. Nice. So I wonder then if we're able to upgrade to the very latest. And oh yeah, that seemed to build. So let's try running our tests as well. Yeah, and that all seems good except for just a line length issue on one of the files. That should be fine. Oh, 708. I always get the order mixed up. So and that's a bit disappointing, the snafu suffix. I don't really think it looks that great. I mean, it probably does help with diagnosing issues, but just adds maybe a little bit more noise. I wonder, is it possible to configure that so that it's not there? Let's take a look at the user guide. So maybe some feature flags. With the suffix snafu added, it doesn't say anything about removing that suffix though. I'm also going to take a quick look at error. Yeah, and it commented out snafu in order to import the prelude. But going back to the docs, is there anything? So custom error types. When that occurs, create your own error types. So snafu, when we derive it, yeah, derive macros, can we give it any parameters? Can we change? Like, maybe it's not a good idea, but I haven't actually had any issues with the suffix not being snafu before. So let's try that. Where are we now? So we'll derive snafu. And so we have visibility public. And what does it say in suffix? Let's try that. Okay, what was the first error that we saw there? Okay, I'm going to have to pipe that into less, I think. So both streams going to standard out, and then we'll pipe that into more, I think will be. the easiest. No, that doesn't seem to be doing anything. Maybe I'll just jump into doc and I do cargo build more. Or maybe I'll just stop it after. Oh no, that's already a ton of output. Okay, oh, there we go. Expected Boolean literal or identifier. So how do I... Oh, just false. I can do that as well. So that's on... But that's on the variant. It doesn't look like I can do suffix false on the enum itself, but maybe that's just a feature of the documentation, because it does say Boolean literal there, so maybe I can put false there. So I think basically all of those will start with failed as well. So let's try that. So we also have the same situation in bind. And that's in type functions. Same situation, functions as well. Possibly in main too. No, that seems to be sufficient. Nice one. So let's go ahead and wonder what that was about. And we'll say that that's a patch level change as well. So we'll rebuild. And that can probably be reverted even. So that's what, line 705 or thereabouts. Interesting. Those still have Snafu. So let's try reverting those as well. And so what was it? Context. Oh, that might be it. I just really needed to remove the breaking change for suffixes. And just to double check, we're on the latest, right? So that was 0.85, yeah. And what I'm going to do is do an FF only merge of the branch that I was just working on. Maybe what I'll do then is, a bit of a pain, but I'll rebase onto mass, not main. And now I can do that. And now we're back to where we were. Hang on, what's that about? Why? Oh, that's, I'd say because of all the branch changing, something got missed. But even if it didn't, I mean, the fix is fairly straightforward. Perfect. And now we are back to where we were, except now we have the latest Snafu support, and that means down here we should be able to do iter, what was it? Iter sources maybe, and I think it was last, but I'll just double check the docs. Let's see. So it was chain compat that was generated by error compat and iter chain. And so I believe I'll need to import so I probably just want to do an unwrap here. And because it's multiple lines, I want to do it like, or because it's multiple calls, I want to do it like that. Oops, what happened there? So let's try this. How do I deal with that? So it's no longer my error. It's just a dynamic error. So it's just meeting that interface. So will I even be able to still check whether it's a variant and whether it's the variant I'm expecting? Oops. That is a bit of a pain. I really don't want to write a function to manually go through all the sources. But I may have to do that. Okay. Could I... No matter what way I think of implementing it, it's going to be somewhat error prone. I mean, it's fine if it's in here and we're using it to write stack traces, because if I forget an error, then it'll just change the formatting of the output, which isn't such a big deal. But here, it could actually lead to fairly difficult to debug issues in just the logic being handled at this point. So what should I do? Because I basically want, like, everything's quite regular. Oops. If there was a macro or something that I could use to yeah, I'm not sure I can, if a macro would be suitable here. Yeah, because we basically just want to keep following sources until we get to something that doesn't have the suffix failed. And then if that thing is runtime, then we check it out. Yeah, I guess the problem is that in all those cases, the source is a dynamic error. Let's go back to the docs again, just in case there's something that I missed. No, there doesn't seem to be a good way of doing that. The only other thing that I can think of is to do some more code gen myself to create the function that I want. And maybe that's my best option. So I could generate, because it would be a very straightforward function to implement and create code generation for, because again, because of the regularity of all these pieces. I guess what I will do, yeah, I could implement it in build.rs as well. Oh, maybe I'll just ask ChatGPT actually. How do you spell that? Programmatic. So let's see, check root variant. Match current error source. Oh yeah. Okay, so it exports. Oh. Why didn't I think of that? I mean, that, if it's true, big if true. So let's see. So source can be an option. I'm probably not importing error actually. Oh yeah. So I've kind of streamed a lot longer than I was expecting to stream today, but it seems like we're quite close here. So let's give it a go. Let's try that. Oops. That looks like a syntax error. Oh yeah. Okay, so source doesn't seem to exist on error. Oh no, I forgot to switch the screen again. I need to do something about that to automatically swap over. Anyway, and this is the code that we came up with, but then this is the error that we're getting for that. Oh, but maybe there's a crate item. Okay, we'll go back to the docs and see if there's an extension item that exports source. Doesn't seem like it. I'm not sure that that's really what I want. Current error dot source. Okay, so we're implementing my error. And we've got result ext. I think I'm using result ext here. Yeah, I've got it imported there. Do I need to import that as well? No. Do I need to do it like that? No, and they're both exporting. That doesn't look right. So let's go back and see, was ChatGPT just hallucinating? This example assumes that the source function will return the error that caused the current one, which is the standard behavior with Snafu. It's defined in the error trait, which is the trait that Snafu implements. maybe I don't think that exists anymore, does it? Or it does. Oh yeah, so that's the for the derive. I mean, I guess this is being implemented as the implementation of my error. But I feel like it shouldn't matter that I'm doing it outside of the implementation. Like the source function or method should just exist on the current error. As error source. Maybe I'll just ask what version of Snafu does this work with? Oh, requires version 6 or later. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to leave it at that point. Maybe do a little bit more research offline. But, that's still fairly good progress. The upgrade of Snafu went fairly smoothly in the end. And the feature is basically implemented at this point just to now distinguish between, like I said, logical runtime errors and errors that are more syntax, semantic, language level issues that really we shouldn't want to catch in general. But again, can also be relaxed on a case-by-case basis as the language matures. So with that all said and done, I'm going to leave it there for today. Thanks as always to everyone checking out the stream and for just engaging and everything. So take care, thanks very much, and see you again next time.